はい。よろしくお願いします。It's the Sunday talk from Daishu-in West on Koju. Thank you for tuning in. We're having a rainy day. Winter is coming down on us. ですね. So let's return a little bit to this idea of protecting ourselves and the ones we care about from suffering. Because people do that. Everybody does that. Everybody actually operates out of self-interest. People expend effort based on the idea that through expending effort their lives will be better, that they will suffer less as a result of expending that effort, whether for themselves or their community or whoever. And yet we still say all the time, every day, every time I put up one of these, that we shouldn't just pursue what is comfortable and avoid what is uncomfortable. As long as we're stuck in that loop, then nothing changes for us. And in fact, we keep suffering. So let's look into that a little bit. Because on one hand, we have the very sensible and good desire to alleviate suffering, whether for ourselves or for the people around us or whomever. We want to alleviate suffering, and that's a good thing. And yet, we don't want to get locked into this pattern. We don't want to be a slave of this pattern of simply seeking what is comfortable and avoiding what is uncomfortable. So they're not the same thing, but they sort of rhyme a little bit. And while it can be clear which is which in sort of drastic examples, sometimes the lines get blurry, particularly when we're dealing with people who are close to us and we love them and we don't want them to suffer. And generally, the way that we differentiate between the two of them is, okay, that this impulse is pleasure-seeking, and okay, this impulse is aspiration towards practice. So we try and divide the impetus, the will. Am I just trying kind of am I just being a slave to my own habits, or am I seeking something better? Am I seeking something higher? I'm not going to find anything, but that impetus towards something, that desire to not be a slave of our habits and to kind of step out of that into something else is commendable. You know, it is an impetus. It is one of those things that inspires us to do. And it is through that inspiration that things happen. Things get accomplished. Change happens. That we're not just stuck in our own everyday, not a day, like customary self. What a drag that would be. But we're not. We can actually effect change, and it's miraculous. So are we effecting change, or are we taking refuge in the comfortable? Is a good litmus test for differentiating between the two things. There's a difference. You know, we're sitting in the zendo and it's rainy and cold. There's a difference between sitting there and, you know, if I were to cut the period early and be like, well, let's go have a cup of tea. You know, that would be an unkindness, actually. That's saying, you know, we don't have to do this. This is hard. So we don't have to do this. Let's just be comfortable. So that, despite the overt kindness or the kind seemingness of the action, of the impetus, it's actually not a kindness. It sort of smells like it, and people might take it that way, but it's not actually. It's actually a kindness to be like, if somebody starts complaining, be like, sit down, be quiet, we've got another period to do. Suck it up. That's a kindness. But it can be very, very difficult when people we care about are in the mix as well. If they're family or friends, lovers, people who are close to us, who we feel responsible for, who are one of us. Then it becomes very, very tricky because we see them suffering. We don't want them to suffer. But can we actually exercise this discernment in that scenario? And can we look at them and say, if I let them off the hook here, is that really the best thing for them? And, what if we mess up and they get pissed off and they don't like us anymore? There's this whole other range of, when it's just us, then it's just us. When we have some hang up because it's somebody we care about and we value, the relationship, and we don't want to screw it up, then it can be very, very difficult to exercise that clear discernment. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I think that we generally keep things separate. It's a lot easier to simply not have those complicated questions arise in a practice environment. It's hard enough when it's ourself, and exercising that clear discernment when it's our own habits and our own confusions and our own tendencies to just be slack. To give an example, there was one night early on when I was at Daitokuji Monastery. I entered in October, the beginning of October. I entered in the beginning of October, 2008, something like that. And it was cold. It was a cold winter. They were having like a 30-year winter or something in terms of snowfall. So there was a lot of snow and it was cold, and you're sitting the yaza out there every night. And so we're sitting yaza, and it was just bitter, bitter cold. And three of us, there were three of us that term who entered, me and my buddy and another guy that we didn't know so well, but he came too. We got to know him, and we were all sitting there. Finally, when you're the Shinto, when you're the new arrival, you're the last to leave yaza. Everybody else kind of leaves in order from top down, and so you're at the bottom. And so you're out there the longest, and it's the coldest, and just sitting there trying not to feel too sorry for yourself. And finally, time's up, and we get up and we leave, and we go back and we put our cushions down, and we're kind of use the toilet or whatever, and getting ready to get into our futons, which we're very excited about. And suddenly, San-san, this guy who was a couple of years above us, yells at us from kind of behind the toilet. There's a little area back there where people keep their laundry and stuff. He yells at us and he's like, "Hey, you guys, what are you doing? Come here." And we're like, "Oh, what do we do now? What's he doing awake even? This can't be good." And we go back there, and he's got like a little gas burner set up, and he's got the sake hot, and he's like, "Here's a cup." And so we had some hot sake and warmed up a little bit and joked around for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and before we got into our futons and slept very, very well. It's one of those things, one of those things that you do. If he had called us off Yaza, he was like, hey, you don't have to sit, come over here, have something, have some hot sake. That would be one thing, but waiting until we're done, getting ready and being like, okay, you guys are new, it is bitter cold, have something nice, it's the middle of the night, we're not going to party or anything, we're just, little something to warm you up, and get into bed feeling just a little bit glowy, and get a good night's sleep, and it was a kindness. It was a kindness. But it's different. It's different if they let you off the hook. It's not. The key is, I suppose, is that letting off the hook quality. If you're being let off the hook, you probably should think twice. It's not in our best interest to be let off the hook. Oh, this is hard. You shouldn't have to do that. No. For most people, I think what we call practice, the spiritual practice, is the product of a certain amount of wealth. We can do it because we're relatively well fed, because we have a little bit of time. We aren't crazy because we're sick, or we're too stressed out, or we have enough. We have enough, and the practice is the flowering of that abundance. And it's actually not necessary. I mean, you can do practice in a jail cell. You can do practice, if you're starving, and it becomes practice. And if you are challenged, I guess, in those ways, and it can be grist for the mill, of course. But by and large, generally speaking, and I think maybe this bears out historically, practice, the great movements of humanity, the great achievements of civilization come out of some abundance. And I think that includes spiritual insight as well, at least on a mass scale. Of course, individuals realize anytime, everywhere, those that are already geniuses in that way, the Ramana Maharshis. That's just what it is for them. But in terms of us, regular people, and our aspirations, a certain amount of abundance seems to be a requirement. And so we can help each other with that. That is a kindness. If somebody needs to be fed so that they can sit and look at themselves, then we feed them. If they need a little something, if they need assistance, they need a kind word, they need encouragement. Maybe the encouragement is telling them, to suck it up and get their shit together and do the work. And that's a kindness. Maybe it's just giving them a place to stay so that they can do a sesshin, because they can't afford, whatever. Maybe it's just feeding them. Maybe it's just showing them a smile, a little kindness. And sometimes it's sort of anti-kindness, a counterintuitive kindness, where you say, hey, suck it up, do better. You can do it. I believe in you. You just got to actually do it, because it's only you that can do the work. I can feed you. I can't wear your clothes for you. I can't eat the food though. I can feed you. I can't eat the food. I can't walk around. I can't haul your body around for you. You have to actually do the work yourself. But I can help. I can take care of these physical things that might be impeding you. And that is a kindness. But what is not kindness is that letting off of the hook. And actually, in a lot of situations, it's easy to say, but in a lot of situations, it is difficult to discern what is letting off the hook and what is proper encouragement. And I think it behooves us all to reflect on it and actually see, okay, well, in what ways do I let myself off the hook? How can I encourage myself better? And for other people too, if I'm part of a practice community, how can I help with the encouragement, with the real encouragement? We don't want to be somebody who enters a practice community and subtracts from the atmosphere, from the aspiration of the group. So I think it's an important thing to reflect on. Okay. Arigatou gozaimashita. Yes, we don't have anything planned. I did a little test before, and hopefully the lousy, I don't know what the problem is, but the audio problem is gone, I think. We do not have anything going on at the temple until Sesshin next month. So if you're interested in doing some sitting, please send me an email. And as always, I'm available for any questions, or if you just want to talk about anything. It's contact@daishu.org. Arigatou gozaimasu.